we are joined by Ihab Omar, who is a journalist and political researcher, joining us from Cairo. Thanks for being here with us. So how do you interpret this attack by Russia, the scale of this attack using missiles and drones?
Greetings to you and the viewers, and thanks for having me. Russia is trying to retaliate the greater scale Ukrainian attack that hit the eastern Russia that described is the strongest since the World War II, when four Russian airports were pounded through the drones that entered the Russian territories in a pickup of shipments, and now Russia is trying to retaliate in the same level of the Ukrainian strike in the Russian dips. The Russian strikes try to target a very vital area in Kiev. In my estimation, Russia is trying to make some sort of the diplomatic and the media retaliations before itself and the whole world. But as reported by the Russian media, that it isn't going to have an greater strike. The Russian close to Kremlin vowed European countries by retaliation, and the strikes will be decisive without any proofs that the Russian president is targeting some of the European countries, and this talks no one can talk and cannot be true. But fortunately, penetrated into one of the Middle Eastern Arab platforms, cited that the Russian strike is going to be bigger and expanded, which is completely different, as the Russian president Putin is negotiating with President Trump, and he's about reaching a settlement with respect to the Ukrainian-Russian war, including some of the Russian demands. Ultimately, the second term of Donald Trump is about to have some sort of an agreement with Ukraine not to go back in.
Okay, well, let me interrupt there, because you were going on to Trump. Let's talk a little bit about Trump. Trump apparently, according to the readout from the United States, in a conversation with President Putin, asked him to have restraint when it comes to retaliation. President Trump also said that maybe it's better for Ukraine and Russia to fight for a while. What do you make of the United States and Trump in particular's way of handling this situation between Russia and Ukraine?
Donald Trump's problem in the second term is different from the first one. Normally, when the people are getting old, they should get more wise and experienced. But Trump is actually his attitude is just like an preacher. Trump is today is talking in that way, but yesterday was differently. Within a week, that was different also. So Trump, when held talks with President Putin, issued a very ambivalent statement. But it is clear through this statement that Trump understood that there is a Russian response against Ukraine, and it will be not only in Ukraine, and it isn't going to be a great one, for instance, targeting the president of Ukraine or topple the regime by striking to some of the vital headquarters in Kiev. In my estimation, behind the closed door of a statement, there is some sort of a continuation of the ongoing talks in order to settle the conflict, and there is a second state in Turkey between Russia and Ukraine, or I mean another round of negotiations, and the pursuit to impose a temporary truce, but it is for discrepancy Ukraine thinks that it is some sort of a win, but the president of Turkey is pursuing to gather the three presidents in Istanbul for the thickness of having a direct talks and final, unlike the conferences that divided the people following the Second World War. So Trump is perceived to be the godfather of settling the matters between Russia and Ukraine and Europe. It seems that it is going to be out of similar conventions as they have no place in the new world following the Second World War, even as the competition between Trump or Washington and Trump isn't going to be regardless of what's happening before.
Now, yesterday, the German Chancellor was at the White House, the new German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz. He was there to speak with Donald Trump, and he urged the United States to put pressure on Moscow, more pressure on Moscow, and to be stronger. That's what he was saying during his visit to Washington. How different is the approach to this conflict from Europe than it is from the United States?
Surely, Germany is in a great dilemma, as in the first front line in defending Europe, as in the history, as the biggest European country close to Russia geopolitically. So the German economy isn't going to suffer during the Ukrainian-Russian war. So, and the German national security is the one is going to be affected by such a war, meaning tourism, investment, and economy, due to the war in the Eastern Europe between Russia and the Western by proxy. So Germany is more hardlined compared to America, and Rupama, the whole Europe, but has to point firstly to get a strain to with Russia, and then to arm Ukraine and supported, as said by the former German Chancellor. And but in the contrary, the Minister of Defense in Germany, when he was previously in the government, that the only minister that lasted between the two governments, even the former was socialist, but the current is conservative. For the sickness of to have a German official with respect to supporting and arming Ukraine, so it is surely for the Chancellor Merz visiting the U.S. for the first time following his taking office to be more strained with Trump in order to have a more decisive position with Putin and Russia, not to allow Russia to announce its victory with the Ukrainian-Russian war.
Okay, well, we only have a few minutes left, but just finally, with both sides escalating militarily, accusing each other of provocations, of terrorism, of attacking civilians, what are the realistic prospects for a ceasefire or even a limited de-escalation in the near future?
The Russian-Ukraine war could be ended in any minute as long upon they have the agreement between Russia and America, as it is a proxy war. So Europe and Ukraine are executing the U.S. vision, but the U.S. vision now is clashed in talks behind the doors of Russia. So it is a dilemma between Moscow and Washington, and up till now there is no final agreement. There is some sort of agreement, the main outlines and main notions between Kremlin and the White House, but some matters are left. Whenever it aims to do, will announce to the agreement. So Zelensky will be hidden to sign this agreement, no matter the opposition will lead. So the Ukrainian and Russian war will be ended by the assistance of the U.S. and Russia.
Well, thank you very much, Ihab Omar, journalist and political researcher. Thank you for joining us here on Q News.